Year 6, and welcome to part 2 of chapter 7 of Stormbreaker. How exciting is this book? And I feel like the action is just edging up a notch now. So we're on chapter 7, Basilia Facilis, and I will continue reading. Why? After Alex Ferguson, I'm a big fan of Manchester United. It was the first thing Alex could think of, but he'd seen a football poster in Felix Leicester's bedroom, and he knew at least he'd chosen the right team. Sale smiled. That's most amusing. Alex, it shall be. I hope we will be friends, Alex. You are a very lucky boy. You won the competition, and you are going to be the first teenager to try out my Stormbreaker. But this is also lucky, I think, for me. I want to know what you think of it. I want you to tell me what you like, what you don't like. The eyes dipped away, and suddenly he was businesslike. We only have 3 days until the launch, he said. We'd better get a bloody move on, as my father used to say. I'll have my man take you to your room, and tomorrow morning, first thing, you must get to work. There's a maths program you should try, also languages. All the software was developed here at Sale Enterprises. Of course, we've talked to children. We've gone to teachers, to education experts. But you, my dear Alex, you will be worth more to me than all of them put together. As he had talked, Sale had become more and more animated, carried away by his own enthusiasm. He had become a completely different man. Alex had to admit that he'd taken an instant dislike to Herod Sale. No wonder Blunt and the people at MI6 mistrusted him. But now he was forced to think again. He was standing opposite one of the richest men in England, a man who had decided, out of the goodness of his own heart, to give a huge gift to British schools. Just because he was small and slimy, that didn't necessarily make him an enemy. Perhaps Blunt was wrong after all. Ha! He's my man now, Sale said. And about bloody time. The door had opened and a man had come in, dressed in the black suit and tails of an old-fashioned butler. He was as tall and thin as his master was short and round, with a thatch of ginger hair above a face so pale it was almost paper white. From a distance, it looked as if he was smiling. But as he drew closer, Alex gasped. The man had 2 horrendous scars, one on each side of his mouth. It was as if someone had attempted to cut his face in half. The scars were a gruesome shade of mauve. There were smaller, fainter scars where his cheeks had once been stitched. This is Mr. Green, Sale said. He changed his name after his accident. Accident? Alex found it hard not to stare at the terrible wounds. Mr. Green used to work in a circus. It was a novelty knife-throwing act. At the climax, he used to catch a spinning knife between his teeth. Then one night, his elderly mother came to see the show. She waved to him from the front row, and he got his timing wrong. He's worked for me for dozens of years. And although his appearance may be displeasing, he is loyal and efficient. Don't try to talk to him, by the way. He has no tongue. Blah, Mr. Green said. Nice to meet you, Alex muttered. Take him to the blue room, Sale commanded. He turned to Alex. You're fortunate. That's one of the nicest rooms that's come up free. Here, in the house. We had a security man staying there, but he left us quite suddenly. Oh, why was that? Asked Alex casually. I have no idea. One moment he was here, the next he was gone. Sale smiled again. I hope you won't do the same, Alex. Right, ooh. Mr. Green gestured at the door, and leaving Herod Sale standing in front of his huge captive, Alex left the room. He was led along a passage past more works of art, up a staircase, and then along a wide corridor with thick wood-panelled doors and chandeliers. Alex assumed that the main house was used for entertaining. Sale himself must live here, but the computers could be constructed in the modern buildings had seen opposite the airstrip. Presumably, he'd be taken there tomorrow. His room was at the far end. It was a large room with a four-poster bed and a window overlooking the fountain. Darkness had fallen, and the water, cascading 10 metres through the air over a semi-naked statue that looked remarkably like Herod Sale, was eerily illuminated by a dozen concealed lights. Next to the window was a table with an evening meal already laid out for him: ham, cheese, salad. His bag was lying on the bed. He went over to it, a Nike sports bag, and examined it. When he had closed it up, he had inserted 3 hairs into the zip, trapping them in the metal teeth. They were no longer there. Alex opened the bag and went through it. Everything was exactly as it had been when he had packed. He was certain that the sports bag had been expertly and methodically searched. He took out the Nintendo DS, inserted the Speed Wars cartridge, and pressed the start button 3 times. At once, the top screen lit up with a green rectangle, the same shape as the room. He lifted the Nintendo up and swung it around him, following the lines of the walls. A red flashing dot suddenly appeared in the top screen. He walked forward, holding the Nintendo in front of him. The dot flashed faster, more intensely. He had reached a picture hanging next to the bathroom, a squiggle of colours that looked suspiciously like a Picasso. He put the Nintendo down and carefully lifted the canvas off the wall. The bug was taped behind it, a black disc about the size of a 10-pence piece. Alex looked at it for a minute, wondering why it was there. Security? Or was Sale such a control freak that he had to know what his guests were doing every minute of the day and night? Alex put the picture back. There was only one bug in the room. The bathroom was clean. He ate his dinner, showered, and got ready for bed. As he passed the window, he noticed activity in the grounds near the fountain. There were lights shining out of the modern buildings. 3 men, all dressed in white overalls, were driving towards the house in a open-top Jeep. 2 more men walked past. These were the security guards, dressed in the same uniform as the men on the gate. They were both carrying semi-automatic machine guns. Not just a private army, but a well-armed one. Got into bed. The last person who had slept here had been his uncle, Ian Ryder. Had he seen something looking out of the window? Had he heard something? What could have happened that meant he had to die? Sleep took a long time coming to the dead man's bed.